good friends, see Yadda Space. I'm Yadda here, let's set the pace. This is a rewatch podcast, so let's begin. Orange is the new black is where we dive in. Every episode we'll discuss, even the scenes that made us cuss. So follow me, join the spree. I try to space with two E's. Spoilers everywhere, so be warned. Super fans, please come on board. Susie's special line and all these ideas because we make it everything truly as it is. Oh, 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 oh. Oh, 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 oh. Oh, 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 oh. Now, oh, 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 oh.
Hello, and welcome to Yadda Space. I'm Yadda, and I'm so glad you're here. This is a rewatch podcast for the Netflix TV show Orange is the New Black. That means that there may be spoilers about things that happen in the future episodes, so please be warned. This is definitely a spoiler zone. On today's episode of our Orange is the New Black rewatch, we will be discussing Season 2, Episode 4, titled A Whole Other Whole. The IMDb synopsis for this episode says, Morello takes a ride. The girls learn about the female body. Piper and Big Boo make a deal. Miss Rosa meets a boy. And Larry and Polly have a date together. In addition, we'll also be getting our first backstories from Morello, which were very interesting to me on first watch. But we'll get there. Phil Abraham is back again as the director of this episode. He has directed 11 episodes of Orange from Season 1 all the way through Season 7, the most recent one being Red's backstory episode in Season 1, but he has many more coming up, including one of my personal favorites in Season 6 called I'm the Talking Ass. So we will definitely be seeing his work again. We also have Sean Heder back again as the head writer for this week's episode. We've seen her work already in Sophia's backstory episode, as well as the Fucksgiving episode, so I think it's safe to say that we are in good hands with these two on for today. And as I always say, I know that there's more than one person in a writer's room, so I'd love to give a shout out to the entire writing team. Thank you all for writing such a great show. You guys told the stories that were not being told, and for that, we thank you. IMDb rates this episode an 8.3. At the end of this pod, I'll be giving my personal rating for this episode, but I encourage you guys to go ahead and write your episode ratings in the comments as well, so that we can get an idea of what we the people think is actually the rating on this episode. Okay, so let's get into it. When the episode opens up, we're with Lorna and they're playing really nice, slow and easy music as she's starting to ease into her day. It's a nice, calm start to the day. It kind of reminds me of the chickening episode in Season 1 where we had Piper waking up slowly with her Sunday morning, having her coffee and like a nice, pleasant day in prison. The way they open up here with Lorna has a similar vibe. She's just calmly getting herself up, getting herself together, doing her hair, putting on her signature red lipstick. Getting ready for the day because as we know, she drives the prison van and so she's getting ready to go out for the day. So Morello grabs her magazine and a pillow to keep her comfy and kisses her cross before she heads out on her drives. It's nice to see that she's found her sense of routine in this place. I'm sure that must be really difficult to do, so good for her. Once Morello gets out to the van, we find out where her trip is taking her today. She's taking Miss Rosa over to one of her chemo treatments because as we know, Miss Rosa's battling cancer right now. But she's still got her humor about her. So Morello explains that she can't turn the heat up too high because the smell of the rat shit from the engine will come into the van. Miss Rosa says, I'm going to get poison pumped into my veins. What's a little mouse shit in my lungs? Oh, Miss Rosa. I'm glad to see she's still got her humor about her, but it's dark humor. But it's still humor, so we'll take it. So we have Morello driving, Miss Rosa is the passenger, and C.O. Fisher, the new guard, is the only one that's assigned to them for this drive. As they get on the road, C.O. Fisher starts to ask Morello about her wedding planning, and Morello plays it off. She's like, we're taking a little break, trying to figure it out. But we know that girl's not getting married. Miss Rosa shares with them that weddings were always bad luck for her. Apparently, she's been married twice, and both of her husbands died. So the last guy that she was with, she didn't even bother marrying him because according to her, once you figure out you've got a curse, you can work your way around it. Which kind of reminds me of the movie Eve's Bayou from 1997, movie I had no business watching when I was 12. It's definitely rated R, definitely inappropriate, but there's a lady in there and she has a similar curse where all of her husbands died. And I'm not going to spoil that movie for you. You'll have to go back and check it out. It's definitely an interesting movie, but it's a classic, so go back and check out Eve's Bayou, classic movie. When Miss Rosa asks Morello how much time she has left, she tells her a little more than 2 years. And Miss Rosa's like, oh, well, you'll be fine. You're still young. You're still pretty. You have your whole life ahead of you. But then Miss Rosa goes on to say that she's going to die here. in prison, which is the sad reality that Miss Rosa is facing. She's got a lot more time left, and so the odds that she will die in prison are pretty high at this point, especially because she's battling cancer. And so while I know she's a criminal, I find it to be really sad. But spoiler alert, I do love how this show handled the end of Miss Rosa's story. I don't think it could have been any more poetic. Love it, but we'll get there. When that scene cuts, we're in our first Morello backstory. This looks to be a time when she was still living at home with her family. Apparently, Morello is just coming back from the movies. She just went to go see Twilight for the 14th time, according to her sister. Which kind of checks out for Morello. I expect her to be a total Twilight fan. But being that Twilight came out in 2008, that dates this for us. So that puts this backstory at about 6 years prior to real time. Lorna's house is completely chaotic. There's a lot going on. Her sister's got kids running around, playing, making a lot of noise. A baby's playing with cigarettes. Nobody's watching him. Apparently, her mother's upstairs, sick in bed, ringing a bell. So we know that they've been caring for her. There's a lot going on. A lot of chaos. But Lorna can't deal. She just goes straight to her room and closes her door, to block it all out. When we get to Lorna's room, we see that she is exactly who we know her to be. A girl who loves love. She's got these giant vision boards up on her wall filled with all sorts of love and marriage and fashion and just very much girly, girly, girly things. And a fun little detail is that she has a giant poster of West Side Story in her bedroom, which is funny because in season 1, she was arguing with Boo about how Bernardo knifes him in West Side Story. So, I guess she knew what she was talking about. She's a big fan, apparently. At the center of one of her vision boards is this guy in some fashion ad, but she has this big red heart made around him, like he is her object of affection. But she doesn't know him. He's some guy from a magazine who apparently she's in love with. We'll stick a pin in that because that's going to come back later. And so, since this is a rewatch podcast, let's talk about this scene like we've seen it before, because we have. So this is when we find out that Lorna is running some sort of a mail scam where she's calling these companies and telling them that she didn't receive stuff that she actually did. She's telling this shoe company that she never got this pair of blue heels, but she has them literally in her hands. She doesn't want a new pair because she already has her pair. She wants a refund. And so we as the audience were led to believe, oh, well, that's why she's in prison. She's doing like mail fraud or something, scamming companies. But no, this is just another crime of hers that she didn't get in trouble for. We'll see others that she didn't get in trouble for either. So while this is indeed a crime, this is not why she's in prison. I don't know if they intended to misdirect us, but I'll tell you, that misdirection made the reveal of the reason why she's really in prison that much more shocking to me in real time. But we'll get there. Meanwhile, she's telling the customer service person, well, thank you for your honesty. I really appreciate it. Like, how ironic, Back at the prison, we're in the cafeteria with V and Suzanne. And V is asking Suzanne about who is bringing in the contraband because she's seeing a lot of people walking around with faces full of makeup that is not in commissary. So where are they getting that from? She's working on her next scheme. But Suzanne tells V that there hasn't been much contraband going around since Red got shut down. And V clocks that. She's like, oh, Red, huh? Yeah, I bet she was the one running that. Okay, got it. Just taking in her intel. And so that's when Suzanne tells V that Poussey makes Hooch, and she gives us her recipe. Apparently it has Kool-Aid, old fruit, ketchup, and moldy bread. Suzanne says it's nasty and tastes like vomit wine coolers. She doesn't like it. She says it makes her feel funny. But as we know, a lot of people love Poussey's Hooch, so I guess that's just a Suzanne thing. It's very popular around here. And I can't help but notice that as Suzanne is explaining all these things to V, her face looks almost as if she's saying, yeah, blah, 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 get to the details. Anything extra, she's like, yeah, whatever. She's literally rolling her eyes like, I don't care. It seems like the only part of this story that she's interested in is trying to figure out how to use Poussey to start selling that hooch. V is looking for a scheme. That's when the rest of the Black girls join V and Suzanne at the table. So now we have Poussey, Taystee, Cindy, and Janae joining them. And Poussey explains to the girls about her pee funnel invention. She basically took some recyclables to make herself a little pee funnel so that she can pee standing up instead of having to squat over the nasty toilets in the prison. I mean, there was a problem, and so she solved it. So good for you, Poussey. I mean, I personally think it sounds a little messy, but, sure. Poussey says she's going to call her invention the Stand and Deliver. The girls play her, though. Cindy calls it the stupidest idea she's ever heard. But Poussey doesn't let that get her down. She's like, you'll see, everyone's going to be wanting one of these to piss in. But that's when V gets annoyed and she's like, hey, we're eating. Like, enough with the piss talk, Which, valid, they are eating. But the girls continue, and Taystee says, I don't see why you need the funnel. She thinks you should be able to just put the tube up in you and pee through that. But Poussey is like, no, that's not where the pee comes out. But all the other girls at the table are like, yeah, it does. It comes out of the big hole. But Poussey says, no, y'all, there's a different hole. And this is brand new news to all of them. Like, they are mind blown. And so Poussey explains, she says, there's the main coochie hole, and then there's like another little hole just for pee. To which Taystee and Cindy are like, nah, you're fucking with us. Like, no. And Poussey is flabbergasted. She's like, didn't y'all take sex ed? Like, how do you not know this? Even Suzanne backs Poussey up, saying she's right. There's an eeny, meeny, weeny pee hole. Taystee's not buying it. She says it all comes out the same hole, the vagina hole. But Poussey doubles down and says, well, then how come you can pee when you have a tampon in? There are 2 holes. And that's when Suzanne taps Poussey saying, well, 3 holes. And then there's like a long pause before Suzanne says, the butt, you know? And they all bust out laughing. All but Taystee and V, who calls them all disgusting. V says she's out. She's not even going to entertain this conversation. She gets up and starts to leave, but as she starts to walk away, she turns back and says, Suzanne, are you coming? And Suzanne does get right on up and follows V, just like a little puppy dog. I hate to see it, but that's what's happening. We find out that the reason Taystee was not laughing with the other girls was because she's still confused. She's like, well, if there's another hole, then where's it at? The next thing we see, we're in the bathroom with Taystee, and she's got her foot up on the toilet, looking between her legs, trying to find this other hole. Janae and Cindy are outside the stall, and Poussey is also coaching her, trying to help her find it. Leanne is over by the sinks overhearing this, and she's like, man, I wish I had a phone to record this shit. Like, y'all are crazy. She wants to put this up on TikTok or something. So that's when Poussey gives Taystee some more instructions, telling her that she needs to look under her clit. She says, before the main hole, or maybe just like inside the top of it. She sounds a little bit confused herself, to be honest. And Taystee cannot find it in that stall. When Taystee asks Poussey how she knows all this, she says, you know, I've been up close and personal with my own share of pussy. So, you know, we know Poussey is a lesbian. She loves the ladies. So she knows her way around. Poussey says to Taystee, do you want me to just show you? But Taystee's quickly like, no, no, you don't need to come in here. Thank you. Just tell me where. And so Poussey tries again. And she's like, listen, inside the big hole, there's like another hole, a little one. And Taystee's like, wait, what? I thought you said it was a whole other hole. The title of this week's episode, A Whole Other Hole. And so Poussey says, it's a hole in a hole. But that's when Sophia walks in the bathroom saying, for the love of God, girls, the hole is not inside the hole. And so Sophia proceeds to give the girls a whole health lesson, telling them that they have their vagina proper and the clitoris. She tells them that the urethra is located between the clit and the vagina. And these girls are looking at her like this is brand new information to them. Poussey says, for real? And Sophia's like, yeah, for real. You know, I designed one myself, so I'm pretty sure I know. Yeah. So Sophia, our trans woman, knows more about her vagina than the other ladies in the prison. Interesting. I'm glad she was available to educate the girls. Sophia hands Taystee her mirror, telling her to take a good long look. Take her time. And so Taystee goes back in the stall with the mirror and she finds it. She says, aw, it's cute. And Poussey, Cindy, and Janae are outside the stall all excited, like, hey, I'm next. I want to see, me too. And Sophia just shrugs, laughing at them. Like, who knew a prison health lesson could be so exciting? Elsewhere in the prison, we see the beginnings of a little lady competition between Boo and Nikki. Apparently, Boo is annoyed with Nikki because she keeps blocking all these girls that she wants to get with. Boo tells Nikki, enough with the clitorference. That's when Boo finds Nikki's sex book. You know, that little journal she was keeping of all of her sexcapades? Boo calls this journal Nikki's fuck book, and she says, well, better pussy than smack, right? I mean, yes. As long as she's being safe about it, I'd say yes. That's probably a better choice. But Nikki insists that it's not an addiction, it's a collection. She says she collects orgasms. She's all about giving, calling herself a bean-flicking Mother Teresa. Dear Lord. And that's when Boo leans in saying, this here is my kind of competition. And so with that, their lady comp was on. Elsewhere in the prison, Soso is telling Piper that she can't believe how many old people are in here. Like, what did they do that they're still in here? Which is a thought that I often thought of when watching this show, especially when we look at the Golden Girls. Those are some old ladies, and I know that they're a minimum now, but what did they do that they've been here for so long? I'm sure some of them were transferred out of Max, spoiler alert, like Frida, but I wonder what the rest of them did. I'm sure it wasn't good to be in here for so long. Soso shares that she's been arrested plenty of times, and she even talks about the time she was moved from Zuccotti Park, meaning that she took part in the Occupy Wall Street protests back in 2011. But she says that that was jail and this is prison. Piper says they're pretty much the same thing, but Soso quickly says, no, they're not. Your parents pick you up from jail. Well, that's true, if you're lucky. That's when C.O. O'Neill comes in to tell Piper and Soso that they're getting assigned to their new bunks. When they get over to the suburbs, you know, the white dorms, O'Neill directs Piper into her area and tells Soso to follow him. Piper is so thankful because that means that she is not rooming with Soso, and she is glad for that. But when Piper turns into her dorm area, she finds out that her new roommate is Red. And Red is not pleased to see Piper. She tells her, you are not in here. But Piper says, looks like I am. As Piper tries to settle into her new area and make some space for herself, Red is reluctant to move any of her stuff. She's like, nope, I'm not moving anything from the desk. Nope, you can't use the hooks. I need everything. I don't even want you in here. But this is not season 1 Piper. She's not gonna cower away from Red. She goes over to that table and starts putting the books away. Like, yeah, no, I'm moving the shit off the desk. This is my desk. When Piper plops those books over on Red's desk, Red stands up to her and Piper holds her ground, saying, what are you gonna do? Not feed me? And Red looks devastated. Like, damn, Piper, you didn't have to hit her where it hurts. Red looks like she's gonna cry. A very different Red from the one that we met in season 1. I'm not a fan of seeing Red down. Over in Caputo's office, he is very carefully manicuring his plants again when Red comes in. Apparently, Red is here to complain because he gave her a roommate, Piper. Red says that she hasn't had a bunkie in 12 years. But Caputo says very matter-of-factly, we don't get special privileges when we turn our work assignment into a drug smuggling operation. Which is a little unfair because, as we know, Red was not smuggling in drugs. That was Mendez. But she was smuggling other things, so I guess. Red defends herself, saying, you know that was never my game. But Caputo brushes her off, saying, yeah, sure, pin it on the guy who's not here to defend himself. Yeah, that's who we should pin it on because that's who did it. It was Mendez. Caputo tells Red that she got too big for her britches. He really lays into Red here, telling her that she let drugs into this prison and that a girl died because of her, which is really a hard thing to say to Red because that girl who died was Trisha, who was basically her prison daughter. And to put her death on Red is a really cruel thing to do, I think. Especially because, again, it was not Red who brought in the drugs. It was Mendez. And again, Red looks like she's about to cry. Because how dare you say that to basically the girl's mother? Her heart's broken. Caputo tells Red that a small leak can sink a great ship. And he can't have leaky holes in his prison. He tells Red, welcome to retirement. Get a hobby. Crochet yourself a fucking hammock for all I give a shit. Showing us that lovely early Caputo charm. Ugh, gross. But Red lets that slide and tells him that he should be using a mixture of garlic, vinegar, and hot pepper sauce to help with his plant problem, giving us a little clue to what her new hobby is going to be. Spoiler alert, gardening. But we'll get there. The next thing that we see is Morello pulling up to Utica Hospital to let Miss Rosa out for her cancer treatments. C.O. Fisher tells Morello to go park in the garage and they'll see her in 3 hours before she and Miss Rosa go inside for her treatments. When Miss Rosa gets out of the prison van, C.O. Fisher has to put handcuffs on her, and she tells her, you know, I hate this part. Miss Rosa looks her dead in her eyes and says, poor you. I love how Miss Rosa does not hold her tongue. She just says it, because for real, poor you. I appreciate that she has sympathy, but like, let's have a little perspective here also. So they go inside and Morello goes over to the garage as she was told. She's parked, she's in the van listening to music and doing her little celebrity crossword puzzle. This sounds like a perfectly beautiful day, honestly. A nice day to be a prisoner. The song she's listening to on the radio is called Almost Paradise by Mike Reno and Ann Wilson, which is a song that I've never heard before, but apparently it's triggering Lorna because she's starting to sing along, and as she does, her eyes are just welling up slowly with tears. Clearly very emotional. Eventually, she puts down her little crossword puzzle and picks up a map that was in the van. It looks like she figured out where she wants to go on that map, and so she starts the van. And as the audience watching for the first time, we were like, what the hell? Where is she going? Clueless. And so she pulls off, and we don't know quite yet where she's going, but that leads us into the next Lorna backstory, where she's at what looks like a shipping place, and she's collecting a whole bunch of packages before she bumps into Christopher. When she bumps into him, all of her boxes fall to the ground, and he nicely helps her pick them up. Once she gathers all of them and she looks up at him, she notices that he has on the exact same sweater as the guy at the center of her vision board, the one in the red heart. And he looks kind of like him too, to be honest. A little bit, I can see it. So Lorna is immediately smitten, in love, stopped dead in her tracks. Christopher jokes that it looks like with all her packages, she's gonna single-handedly keep the USPS in business. And so she jokes back saying, yeah, I love my country. I'll do it. I'm a patriot. I'll keep the USPS going. And so she laughs too, as he says, unless you're running a mail scam, which she is, but she plays it off, laughing some more. And so that's when they introduce themselves to each other. We find out that this is Christopher, and she does come out and tell him that he looks like somebody. And like I said, she is stuck because he looks just like that guy on her wall. When Christopher finds out that her name is Lorna Morello, he compliments her, saying, beautiful and Italian. Today must be my lucky day, which is a really nice compliment. So of course, Lorna grabbed onto that. But no, sir, I don't think today's your lucky day. It's actually going to be the beginning of some headaches for you. But we'll get there. And so Christopher makes his first mistake and offers to take Lorna out for coffee, which of course our girl Lorna is all about, so excited. She says, I would love that, Christopher, in a way only she can. Back at the prison, V is trying to warm up to Poussey, talking about her product, for peeing standing up. But V is not interested in talking about that business venture. She wants to talk about Poussey's Hooch. V is really pressuring Poussey to sell her Hooch, but Poussey says that's not the point. She makes it for her and her friends. V doubles down, even offering to collaborate with Poussey to make the Hooch even better. Use a little bit of V's recipe, a little bit of Poussey's recipe, and come up with a great one that they can sell by the cup or even by the sip. But Poussey is not interested. She's like, that's not my bag. No, thank you. That's right, girl. Don't let her pressure you. It's your thing. Do what you want to do. Elsewhere in the cafeteria, Red comes over to Gina and Norma's table, trying to warm up the ice between them. She asks Gina how she's feeling, tells her she looks better, but Gina ignores her. Red even tries to offer her a little home remedy for her burn, trying to make sure it doesn't scar. Red says all you need to do is mix some lemon juice with Vaseline and apply it every day. Gina finally says to Red, what do you want? And so Red starts with a whole bunch of nonsense. She says she wants her to stop sulking. Red says that she never meant for Gina to get hurt and that she did it for the good of the family, but not once did she apologize. And Norma has had it. She slams her cup on the table and looks at Red like, is that all you have to say? And Gina tells her that's not good enough. And so instead of humbling herself and apologizing sincerely for what she did, Red instead gets up and walks away, saying, fine. I love Red, but that pride, man, that's tough. And so then we get a little montage of Piper going through the prison trying to collect her things that apparently people have stolen from her while she was away in Chicago. She goes up to Leanne and grabs the book that she's reading out of her hands. And when Leanne is like, hey, give that back, Piper simply goes, everybody dies. Like, damn, girl, did you have to ruin the ending for her? And I won't tell y'all the name of that book because I don't want to ruin the ending for you. When she gets over to Cindy, apparently she's got Piper's music player. But when Cindy denies that it's Piper's, Piper shows her that her inmate number is carved into the back. And so Cindy goes, all right, fine, Inspector Gadget. To which Piper says, Inspector Gadget was not a good detective. He just had a lot of stuff. Plus he had Penny in the brain helping him. Word. I used to hate Inspector Gadget as a kid. I thought he was so dumb, and I would get really annoyed as a child that he could not figure stuff out and that the little girl and the dog were smarter than him. It just annoyed the hell out of me, but I digress. Even Yoga Jones stole from Piper. Piper yanks her flip-flops right off of her feet, saying, you too? But Yoga Jones tells her that none of them really thought that she was coming back. I guess that makes it okay. I mean, who else was going to use this stuff? When Piper gets over to Suzanne, she's got a picture of Piper and Larry hanging next to her bed. And Piper's like, really? Suzanne looks over at it and says, it ain't about you. I like the beach. Okay, Suzanne. And so Piper tells her, you know what? Keep it. When Piper gets over by Boo, she finds that Boo has Miss Claudette's blanket wrapped around her. And if we remember in season 1, when Miss Claudette got sent down to Max, Piper claimed that blanket. That is her blanket because she was her roommate. And Piper says as much to Boo now, like, we've talked about this, I'm taking it back. And so Boo gets up like she wants to fight Piper, talking about, okay, so how do you suppose you're gonna do that? But Boo just tells Piper to fuck off. And so that's when Soso comes over to Piper, trying to make plans with her to go to movie night together. But when Boo sees Soso, she's trying to push up on her, trying to say, you know, like, who are you? I'd like to get to know you. But Soso ignores her, and Piper tells her to go away. When Boo tells Piper that it looks like she found herself a little pet kitten, Piper says, I just want to put her in a bag of rocks and dump her at the bottom of the lake. Damn, Piper, you are getting real graphic and violent lately. And also, that imagery is very similar to a little something that happens later on in season 6. If you know, you know. But we'll get there. Boo ends up telling Piper that if she really wants that blanket back, maybe they can work out a trade. Which, I hate the sound of that. Are we trading blankets for people? That's gross. Over in the black dorms, Taystee's laying down while Poussey paints her toenails for her. And not well either. Taystee says that's a hot ass mess. And it is. But Poussey insists it's abstract, yo. Poussey says, look, all innovators have their work criticized at first. Appreciation will come. She tells Taystee she'll give her time. Let it marinate a little bit. And so they start playing around and Taystee's tickling Poussey. You know, two besties. Although I have to note that while Taystee is tickling Poussey, at a point she does say, I can't breathe. And I don't like that. It makes me think of what's to come. And I kind of hate that it's in there. Not sure if they put it there on purpose, but it's there and we'll get there. So as the girls are laying there giggling on the bed, all of a sudden, Poussey goes in for a kiss. And Taystee doesn't pull away, but she tells her she's sorry and that they've been through this. And Poussey looks sad, saying simply, I know. Poussey just looks like she's just longing for love, you know? Connection. And so Taystee says, maybe we could just cuddle for a minute? You know, I can give you some affection, but I'm not into you like that. And so Poussey smiles and says, yeah. And Taystee cuddles her. Taystee's the big spoon and Poussey's the little spoon. But Poussey still looks sad. Like, this is not enough. As they're laying there cuddling, V walks by, notices them, does like a little tilt of her head, like, what's going on over here? But she doesn't say anything. She keeps walking. But we know she's clocked that, and we'll see what she does with it. Elsewhere, we're back in the van with Lorna, and she's telling herself, go back. You can still go back. She's in a panic, and she's off driving somewhere. She is no longer in that garage, that's for sure. Up in the hospital, Miss Rosa is getting her cancer treatment, and she's sitting next to a teenage boy playing Fruit Ninja on his little iPhone. Miss Rosa tries to be nice to him and, you know, take a little interest in his game, but he is not interested. He tells her that he has to be here for the next 2 hours, but he does not feel like talking to some old bald lady. Rude. Miss Rosa says to him, well, shoot, I was going to tell you a joke. But that's when his phone tells him he has about 5% battery remaining, so all of a sudden now he's interested in Miss Rosa's joke. But Miss Rosa says, too late. I love her. But she does end up telling him the joke. She says, so the doctor says to the patient, I've got bad news and some more bad news. The bad news is you've got cancer. And the more bad news, you've also got Alzheimer's disease. So the patient thinks for a minute and then she says, well, at least I don't have cancer. Again, another dark joke from Miss Rosa. That's okay. I like dark humor. I think it's funny. But the teen does not get it. And Miss Rosa says she's not going to explain it to him. He needs to figure it out. I love her. That's when C.O. Fisher comes over to Miss Rosa and tells her that she's going to go get a soda from the vending machine. And she offers to get one for Miss Rosa as well, telling her, don't tell anyone. So again, we see C.O. Fisher's good heart. She's bending the rules, sure, but like, have a little heart. The lady's going through cancer treatments. If a little Pepsi will brighten her day, why the hell not, you know? That's when Miss Rosa reveals to the teen that C.O. Fisher is not her daughter. She's a correctional officer. And yeah, Miss Rosa is an inmate. And the teen's mind is blown. He's like, what? What did you do? And so she tells him she robbed a bank. But he doesn't believe her. And so the kid says, no way. But Miss Rosa looks him dead in his face and says, Google me. I love it. And so the teen's intrigued. He's like, all right, so tell me about it. And Miss Rosa says to him, do you want to know about the first time or the last time? Like, bro, Miss Rosa is about that life, okay? She has quite the story to tell. And so she starts and tells him that the first time was in 1982. We leave them and we're back with Morello, who's parked outside of a green house with a red door. And she's just sitting there looking at it before she finally says, fuck it, and gets out. Morello goes up to the front door, looks inside, tries the knob, but she can't get in. So she takes one of their little decorative bunnies that they have outside, goes around the back, and throws it through a little window. Breaking and entering? Morello, this is not good. She creaks open that door and she's walking through all the shattered glass that she has on these people's floor. We still don't know where she is. And then we finally stumble upon some pictures and we find out she's in Christopher's house. There are pictures of him and his actual fiance all over the place. And Morello has tears in her eyes. Like, she is absolutely heartbroken to see these pictures. But also, girl, why are you in their house? This is crazy, crazy, crazy. And the reveal that Morello had all of this going on was absolutely mind-blowing to me. And so Morello stumbles upon their wedding planning. She sees their seating chart and she picks up a wedding invitation that says, Mr. and Mrs. David Kuznick request the honor of your presence at the wedding of their daughter, Angela Kuznick, to Christopher McLaurin, Friday the 14th of February at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So there we learn that Christopher's fiance is Angela, and apparently the wedding date that she couldn't pick for herself is Valentine's Day, which frankly I think is a little bit of a corny wedding date, but you know, to each his own. I'm not shocked that that was Lorna's wedding date because that seems about on brand for her. But yeah, I am kind of shocked that Angela didn't want to pick her own wedding date. Or maybe she's a similar personality to Morello, and she just loves love too, and so she would naturally pick Valentine's Day also. I'm not sure. Morello takes one of those wedding invitations, folds it, and puts it away in her jacket pocket. Looks like she's taking a souvenir from this house. When she gets up to their bedroom, you see that they have a little cutesy bed with pillowcases that say, always kiss me goodnight, and a little teddy bear that says, love lives here. So yeah, actually, I think that there's a good chance that Angela is probably very close in personality to Morello and that she probably is a little bit cheesy and loves love, very much like Morello does. So maybe the Valentine's Day date was her idea. It looks like seeing those pillows and that little teddy bear is absolutely heartbreaking for Morello, though. She starts going through their closet and calling Angela's clothes trash until she gets to her wedding dress. And Lorna looks longingly at Angela's veil before she puts it on her own head. You know, probably trying to imagine herself in her own happy wedding day. It is just absolutely heartbreaking to see, honestly. And the way the actress who plays Morello, Miss Yael Stone, is portraying this is beautiful, honestly, in the most heartbreaking of ways. So shout out to Yael Stone. Your portrayal of Lorna is the reason why she's one of my favorite characters. You know, she's definitely not perfect, but the way that she's portrayed, you really feel for her. So thank you, Miss Stone, for making Morello real for us, the audience. You did a really great job with her. That leads us into another Lorna flashback where apparently she's getting ready to go on her first weekend getaway with Christopher. Or at least that's what she tells her sister. And so she's getting ready and her sister is like, where do you get all this money for these clothes that you be wearing? And Lorna insists that she gets good deals. Yeah, sure, girl. Scamming deals. Lorna tells her sister that Christopher has the whole weekend planned and they're going to go on a sailboat and go on the Wildwood Ferris wheel at sunset. Which makes me wonder what Lorna actually did this weekend, because I'm pretty sure she didn't actually go on a trip with Christopher. But Lorna continues the facade and gushing about Christopher until her sister is like, you should bring him over for dinner sometime. But Lorna brushes that off, basically calling her crazy. There's no way she's bringing Christopher by to meet everybody. She's not trying to scare him off. She thinks he's the one. But her sister says, you don't know if he's the one until he's met the family, okay? It's like a test. But Lorna says he don't need a test, okay? He's her destiny. My girl is completely lost in her delusion. She's comparing her bumping into Christopher to Hugh Grant and Julia Roberts in Notting Hill. She tells her sister Franny that this was meant to be. And her sister softens, looking like she's just happy for her, and tells her that she looks good in her dress. To which Lorna says, like Pretty Woman? And her sister's like, yeah, sure, like Pretty Woman. Back at the prison dorms, Red and Piper are starting to warm up to each other. They're bonding over shared hatred of facial hair. And so Red eventually asks Piper, how's Larry doing? But Piper tells her that she doesn't really know. They don't really talk. And as a matter of fact, she doesn't really get much mail from anyone these days. Piper feels like Larry probably told all her friends that she's a horrible, evil cheater. And so she says she's not really in a position to defend herself. because she did cheat on him. And so Piper says nobody has any idea what to say to her anymore. And that's when Red shakes her head saying people are fickle fucks, probably thinking about her own situation between herself and Gina, you know, kind of calling Gina fickle here. It looks like Red doesn't really see her part in this at all, if she's coming at it that way. But Piper says the thing is, she doesn't blame them. Piper continues to take accountability. She says that she was selfish, and she was. But Red tells her that you have to be selfish in here. That's how you survive. Which sort of sounds like she's trying to explain away her own behavior, you know, causing that fire that burned Gina. Because Red then goes on to say that people's loyalty means nothing. The second you're not useful to them, you're out. Which is clearly how she's feeling about her interaction with herself and Gina. She must feel like she's been put out of the friend group, but honestly, Red, you kind of put yourself out because you did something horrible that hurt Gina and you have yet to take accountability for it. So no, you did that to yourself. According to you, for the sake of survival, sure, but don't be mistaken, that was your choice. Piper asks Red directly, do you think that's why your girls turned on you? And Red shrugs, saying, you know, my friendship used to come with perks. Now I'm just an angry old Russian lady. She says without the free stockings and eyeliner, she's not the draw she used to be. Which I'm not going to say that doesn't have anything to do with it. I'm sure it probably does have a little something to do with it. But also, let's not ignore that accountability piece, Red. Then Red attempts to give Piper some kind words about Larry before she heads out, telling Piper to take it from her. Husbands are overrated. Red says they're as useless as children. Jesus. She goes on to tell Piper to count herself lucky, and if it was meant to last, it would have. Then Red gives Piper a little tweezer for her facial hair before laying back down. That was very kind, Red. Outside of the prison, we're with Larry and Polly, who apparently went out for coffee. And Polly is complaining about the struggles of being a new mom. So it's Polly, Larry, and Polly's baby sitting there drinking their coffees like a happy little family as Polly complains about the perils of new motherhood and Pete being gone. Polly tells Larry that he's the only one who still comes around. A lot of her friends say that they'll still come around, but they don't. Which, yeah, I do remember that in early motherhood. Your friends that don't have kids, sometimes you don't see them as much anymore, which really sucks. That's when a little old lady on the street stops and asks Polly how old is the baby and compliments the three of them for being such a beautiful family. And they don't correct her. Larry actually accepts the compliment and makes a joke, saying, yeah, you know, despite the blonde hair, she still swears he's mine. Okay, you're really leaning into that one, Larry, huh? And so Larry lies and says that the baby's name is Hampus, which, Hampus? Okay, that's a choice. Like that sound on TikTok. It's your baby. Name him what you want, I guess. And so Larry continues to spin the story to this old lady about how he and Polly have been married for such a long time, how they got married on the Circle Line next to the Statue of Liberty. Even Polly adds on to the story, saying that they met in the city, Larry says at a Star Trek convention, which again is funny because Red was on Star Trek. And so the old lady says, well, enjoy. You guys are perfect together. It's very clear. Larry and Polly just smile at each other and laugh together. So clearly those two are very comfortable together, totally cool with leaning into the idea of them being together in this little family, which if they're happy, I guess good for them, but it still rubs me the wrong way, being that he's Piper's ex and she's Piper's quote unquote best friend. It's just nasty to me. Not cool. I don't care even if Piper did cheat on him. I still don't like it. Back at the prison, we see Gloria outside receiving shipments of food for the kitchen as Red is walking by. And we notice that the boxes are no longer from Neptune's produce. They're apparently using a new supplier. My eyes cannot read what the name of the new supplier is, but I know it doesn't say Neptune, so that change has happened. And we find out that Red was headed to the old greenhouse. Apparently there's a greenhouse on property that looks abandoned for sure, definitely run down, definitely has not been attended to in many years, but it exists. And so Red sees perhaps a new opportunity for herself. When Red notices a little mouse in there suddenly go between the floorboards, she gets curious and starts to lift up those floorboards. And we don't know what she's found yet, but we'll get there. Back over at Christopher's house, Lorna is still wearing Angela's veil, and now it looks like she's made it to their bathroom. The time on the clock at Christopher's house is 2:03. I'm not sure what time they got to the hospital, but if you remember, she's only got 3 hours, and I'm not sure how far she drove, but I hope she's watching that time. Spoiler alert, she's not. That's when my girl Morello starts the bath water and adds bubbles to the tub. This girl takes off all of her clothes and gets into the bath wearing nothing but Angela's veil. Absolutely bonkers. I mean, mind blowing to see this the first time. Like, Lorna, what are you doing? We leave Lorna in that tub as we head into another one of her backstories. This time she's in court for the crime that got her sent to prison, and it looks like Christopher is on the stand. Christopher tells the court that he met Morello at the post office. They went on one coffee date, and that was it. He basically just wasn't that into her, and he told her that. But Lorna did not take the hint and continued to harass him on the phone, Facebook, text, emails, everything, just complete bombardment. Christopher said that Morello even showed up at his house before. So this is not her first time at his house. She's done this before, which must be absolutely terrifying for him because sure, she's just this lady, but like she's a stalker and she's broken into his house before. What a violation. Apparently, once he told Morello that he wasn't interested, he started getting threats from her. So she turned up her crazy a little bit. Not good. Christopher has changed his phone number, his email, and he even moved twice. And Morello still was able to harass him. And that's when Christopher dropped the bomb that apparently once he started dating his current girlfriend, Angela, and they went away for the weekend to Atlantic City, Lorna showed up. So when Lorna was telling her sister about her first trip with her boyfriend, Christopher, apparently that's the trip she was talking about. The one where she popped up on his trip with his girlfriend to harass them. Not good, girl. Damn, Lorna. Lorna's threats just kept escalating more and more until she eventually threatened to strangle Angela. And so Christopher got a restraining order at that point, but it took you that long? You had to move twice already. I would have gotten a restraining order a long time ago. I mean, Christopher said that it got so bad that they even found an explosive device under Angela's car one time. Like, that's bad, Morello. Real bad. Michael Jackson. No, but really bad. And Lorna has the nerve to turn to her lawyer and say, he's being so dramatic. He's twisting the whole story. Is he? Are you sure? Are you sure? Back to present day in Christopher's bathtub, we have Morello still naked wearing Angela's veil, and she's fallen asleep. That is until we hear a door close downstairs and Christopher yelling up for Angela. The time is now 3:26. Over an hour has passed, and Morello is still in that tub, naked with Angela's veil on. She gets up quickly, puts on a bathrobe, and picks up her stuff. Meanwhile, Christopher is walking around the house trying to figure out if somebody's in there, and Morello is trying to get out of the window, okay? She opens it up and throws her clothes out, and then stops, reaches for the bear on their bed, you know, the one that says love lives here. And she puts it in her mouth as she climbs out the window. She makes it all the way to the van before Christopher comes outside, so good for her. But also, how does he not know that she was there? I mean, there was a big ass prison van sitting outside of his house. He didn't see that? Come on. Back at the prison, we're back in Caputo's office and Red is at his door telling him, you were right. And so she starts in on her new game. She tells Caputo, you know what? You're right. I'm getting old. I do need a new hobby, you know? And so she leans into it, saying that everybody else has work, something to do. But Red and the rest of the Golden Girls need something also. Red tells Caputo, I hear gardening is very therapeutic. It lowers stress, helps with depression. It can actually be quite healing. And you know, Caputo loves his plants, so his ears perk up and he gets real into it himself, telling Red, yeah, you know, people who do 3 hours of gardening a week actually live longer. So, you know, she's preaching to the choir. He's all about gardening. And so Red asks about the greenhouse, you know, can they clean it up and maybe start using that? She even tells him that he can put some of his plants in there, you know, sweeten the deal. But he's suspicious. He's like, okay, but what do you get out of it? Red tells him that she gets to boss people around again. She says even if it is a bunch of fossils. Caputo's open to it. He tells her to bring him a budget and he'll see what he can do. And so Red is off with her new plan in motion. Back at the hospital, we see Miss Rosa and CO Fisher sitting outside waiting for Morello as she speeds up with the prison van. And she's all frantic, like, I'm so sorry, I fell asleep. I don't know what time it is. But Fisher is like, it's okay, we just got down here. You were right on time. And so Morello is back in her prison uniform, looking pretty much normal, even though her hair is a little bit wet still. And that's when she notices that the bathrobe is still in the passenger seat of the van. But she somehow grabs it and throws it out the window before Fisher can see. And spoiler alert, I know there's a little bit of controversy later on about why Fisher gets fired, but honestly, there are quite a few examples of her not doing her job to the best of her abilities, I'll say. And this is probably one of them. Like, how did you not see Morello throw the bathrobe out the window? You don't smell the bubble bath on her? You're not asking any questions about why her makeup is a little bit faded? Or why her hair is a little bit wet? I mean, just pay attention, girl. Do your job. I mean, Morello is my girl and all, but there were signs. Back at the prison, it looks like the whole conversation has spread because now Leanne and Angie are talking about it as well. Yoga Jones calls it the talk of the town, the wonders of the female anatomy. But Piper thinks it's ridiculous and somebody needs to get these women a medical book. It is kind of true. How are there so many grown women in here who don't know how their bodies work? What's going on? That's when Yoga Jones points over at Soso. Apparently Soso's in prison for political protesting. Sister Ingalls does not respect Soso's generation's idea of political protesting. She calls them bogus bohemian babies who have no idea what a nonviolent direct action is. But that's when Piper puts on a big fake smile and calls Soso over to their table, which apparently scares Yoga Jones and Sister Ingalls away. It seems like everybody in this prison is annoyed with Soso because she talks too much. So they get up and leave. Soso is so happy to sit down with Piper, though. She's like, I thought you were mad at me. And so that's when Piper starts working on Soso. Basically, Piper's trying to set Soso up so that she'll be open to sleeping with Boo. Piper tries to get in Soso's head, sort of like an inception. Piper tells Soso that prison is a dangerous place, and Soso is a vulnerable girl. And so Piper tells her that she should probably find herself a prison wife. Someone really tough that no one's gonna fuck with. You know, getting in her head so that Soso will allow Boo to get closer to her. Piper tells Soso that one night with the right protector will keep her safe for the rest of her sentence. Which, Piper, why are you setting this girl up? Not cool. I'm not a fan of the storyline. As Piper is getting Soso all primed for Boo, Boo is looking on from a nearby table, kind of like watching the whole deal go down. So eventually Boo comes over, being totally not subtle, as she sits down next to Soso saying, I feel so single today. Girl, is that your pickup line? That's not good. And so the whole thing basically just falls apart to the point where Piper's like, you know what? This is not working. Can I just get my blanket back, please? But Boo stands her ground saying, no, you didn't deliver. And Soso's like, deliver what? Me? You know, completely flabbergasted. Like, what the fuck is going on here? Were you trading me for a blanket? How dare you? What the hell? Soso says to Piper, were you trying to pimp me out? And so Piper says very matter-of-factly, she took my blanket. It belonged to my roommate. It meant a lot to me. Plus, it is very fucking cold in the dormitories. Like, girl, that is not an excuse. Does she think that's valid? That is not valid. No. Soso says, you tried to sell me for a blanket? Yeah, girl, she did. Ridiculous. Soso tells Piper that she is sick and seriously fucked up before she walks away. And good for you, Soso, because yeah, that was gross. Not a fan of that storyline at all. When Soso walks away, even Boo says to Piper, she's right, Chapman, you're a horrible person, as she laughs and walks away. Damn, Piper. I know you've changed since season 1, but has it been for the better? I don't know. So Soso's out of the pan and into the fire because as she left the cafeteria and got out of Boo's clutches, we find her over by her bed crying. And not only do we find her crying there, but Nikki finds her crying there. And so she comes over to check on her like, hey, what's the matter? You okay? Want to talk about it? The next thing that we see is Soso enjoying Nikki's sexual talents up at the front of the chapel. Seems like that's one of Nikki's favorite spots. And even though Soso seems to be enjoying herself with Nikki and her talents, she still will not stop rambling. And it frustrates Nikki to the point where even though we know that Nikki is a giver and she likes to give, Nikki's like, this girl will not shut up. So she ends up letting Soso have a turn doing the giving, you know, anything to shut her up, I guess. Jeez, Nikki. But she's done what no one else in this prison could do. She got Soso to stop talking. Back in the greenhouse, Red is back to picking up those planks off the floor. And this time we see that she's revealed a sewer entrance below those planks. And Red smiles because she's found a new exit out of the prison. Not that she wants to use it to escape or anything. She wants to use it to again have a pathway for her contraband. But we'll get there. Over in the black dorms, V rolls up on Taystee talking about, where's your little cuddle bunny? I saw you down here all cozied up with your little girlfriend. You know, talking about Poussey. But Taystee tells her they are just friends. And so that's when V starts to show her bigotry here as she lays the seeds of distrust between Taystee and Poussey. She tells Taystee not to let Poussey get her wrapped up in her gay mess and that Poussey is not her real friend and she's only her friend in here. And then V reaches up to caress Taystee's face as she says, she don't know you like I do. Bitch, I cannot stand V. OMG, the manipulation is disgusting to me. Back at Polly's apartment, Larry and Polly are sitting on the couch watching something on the TV as they check the baby monitor. You know, like the happy little family they are, pretending to be. And Larry tells Polly that he enjoyed playing house with her today, but he fears that he'll never have that. But she tells him to shut the fuck up, he will. Then he says he doesn't want to go home, and she says that she doesn't want him to. Blah, blah, blah. You get it. They're getting together, and I do not like this storyline. Sure, it's a slow burn. Sure, it's slow and steady, but I still don't like the premise. That's Piper's ex-fiance and Piper's best friend, sometimes frenemy. I don't think it's cool. Sorry, I'll never like it. That scene ends with Polly thanking Larry for helping her this week, and she gives him a little kiss on the cheek before she lays her head on his shoulder. You know, they're getting all comfortable with each other. Good for them, I guess. Back at the prison in the rec room, Sophia is giving a formal lesson to the ladies. She's standing up in front of Cindy, Leanne, Angie, Janae, Maritza, and Flocka with a poster board explaining to them how the female anatomy works. Sophia tells the ladies that she wants each and every one of them to get back to their bunks tonight and get to know their cha-chas. And as Sophia is giving little tips about how to find the clitoris, we see C.O. O'Neill in the back of the room very much paying attention like, ooh, you know what? Let me take some notes on this right here. You need some help, O'Neill? That's okay. I hope you learned something from Sophia today. Help C.O. Bell out a little bit. Because as we remember, he's dating C.O. Bell. So hopefully this little lesson will help her out too. Later on that night, the ladies are sitting for movie night, and Gina notices all the Latinas are sitting in the front of the room. She says to Nikki, how come they got all the best seats? To which Nikki says, the reign of Whitey is over. So I guess since the Latinas are running the kitchen, they are now the top dog in the prison, so they get the best seats at movie night. Those are the perks. Soso is sitting with Nikki, so it looks like she found herself her prison wife, or so she thinks. She's still yapping her ear off, and Nikki is still annoyed. But when Boo catches her eye, she makes sure to go ahead and rub it in her face a little bit that she, quote-unquote, won Soso. Still not loving that they're treating Soso like a prize to be won, but that's what's happening. Taystee also seems to be annoyed that the Latinas are sitting in the front, but because they're sitting on pillows and kind of blocking everybody. And that's when V wants to pipe in with her, oh, in my day, the black women. And Taystee cuts her off like, yeah, we know. Y'all ran this place. Like, we hear it all the time. We get it. New story, please. And so that's when Poussey comes in and she's like, hey, you guys didn't save me a seat? And Taystee kind of blows her off, being very cold and dismissive. Clearly, she's under V's control. That's when V pipes in and says to Poussey, maybe you should get here on time. Ugh. And Poussey is looking at her like, is this bitch serious? But she sees what's happened. V has turned Poussey's best friend against her, which I'm sure feels absolutely horrible. And honestly, I'm disappointed in Taystee. I understand the hold that V has on her, but damn it, I wish she could have seen through it this time. We see Morello at the back of the movie night room, and she's holding her little bear that she got from Christopher's house. And she starts crying to the point that Yoga Jones asks her if she's okay. Morello says she is, and she's just missing her fiance Christopher is all. So she's clearly still living in her delusion, still going with that story, even though she's seen with her own eyes that Christopher is clearly not her fiance. Yoga Jones tries to comfort her though, telling Morello that time is relative and she'll be back with Christopher before she knows it. That's when Morello asks Yoga Jones, almost desperately, and we'll be married? To which Yoga Jones says, of course you will, because what else is she gonna say? She doesn't know that Lorna is living in a delusion, so she goes along with it. And Lorna smiles and tells Yoga Jones that she's decided not to wear a veil. It's too traditional, and I want him to see my face. And Yoga Jones, being a good friend, hypes her up, saying, "And why hide it? It's gorgeous." And the camera zooms in on Morello, with her eyes completely soaked with tears, streaming down her face, yet she's got this great big smile on her face at the same time. It's just so heartbreaking and beautiful at the same time. Again, another win from Miss Yael Stone. Beautiful acting. And then we hear Almost Paradise play again as we get our orange screen indicating the end of the episode. Absolutely perfect. Another beautiful example of how they use the music in those end credits. I think that was beautiful. As a reminder, IMDb rated this episode an 8.3, but let me think about my rating for a moment. Well, first of all, this is one of, if not the most memorable backstory episode for me. Seeing Lorna take the prison van and go to Christopher's house and finding out that that's the real reason why she was in prison was one of the biggest reveals for me watching this show. Completely blew my mind, as I think I've said time and time again. And again, I think that Yael Stone, the actress who plays Morello, plays that part absolutely beautifully. We know that she's crazy, but she's also just a girl in love. And the way that she plays both sides of that, I mean, I think it's beautiful. I also enjoyed the fact that even though it was kind of fun that the girls didn't really understand their own anatomy, made for some fun, interesting conversations, I thought it was pretty good and ironic that it was Sophia, the trans woman, who was able to explain it to them, taught them something about their own bodies that they had no idea about. And I loved the irony of that. Did not love the storyline with basically trying to trade Soso for a blanket. That was not cool. Also, the rise of morally corrupt Piper. Not loving that. Also, don't love the progression of this V storyline with how she's coming in between Taystee and her friends, especially Poussey. I mean, Poussey is on the outs right now, and I do not love that for her. I think it was really cool that we got to learn a little bit more about Miss Rosa in this episode. Her personality is so fun to me. Kind of dark, but very fun. And I think it was interesting to see how Red is navigating her loss of power and how she's trying to maneuver herself into a new power position. Red's always thinking, and I respect that about her. So for me, I think I'm going to go a little bit higher than IMDb because this was one of my favorite backstory episodes. On that strength alone, I'm going to have to give this episode an 8.4. But that's just me. Don't forget to comment your favorite lines from the episode and let me know what your personal rating is for this week. Mine again was an 8.4, but what do you think? I would love to hear yours. The next episode we will be rewatching is Season 2, Episode 5, titled Low Self-Esteem City. The IMDb synopsis for that episode says, a bathroom turf war sees deeper lines drawn in the sand as Gloria and V go head to head. Piper receives devastating news. And we will also be getting Gloria's first backstories in that episode as well. So I can't wait to get into all of that when we revisit Season 2, Episode 5, Low Self-Esteem City, next time. Thanks for listening, you guys. And as always, thanks for hanging with me in Yadda Space. Just so you know, I've been having such a good time chit-chatting with you guys about Orange is the New Black. Self-promotion does not come easy, but I know it's a must to keep the podcast going. Every time you guys listen to the podcast, you like a post, you comment, or you share a post on social media, you're helping this little podcast to grow. And I can't thank you enough for the love and support. If you've been hanging out in Yadda Space for a while now and you're enjoying the Back to Litchfield podcast, please consider leaving the podcast a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platform. Also, if you're able and want to go the extra mile, please consider checking out our Patreon. And be sure to follow us on your favorite social media apps for bonus content from the show, as well as updates about the podcast. And if ever you're searching for the pod, remember, it's just like the theme song says, Yadda Space with 2 E's. Thanks again for your continued support. It means so, so very much. I'll catch up with y'all next time here at Yadda Space.
Hey, welcome friends to Yadda Space. I'm Yadda here, let's set the pace. This is a rewatch podcast, so let's begin. Orange is the new black is where we dive in. Taystee's wisdom sets the tone. Poussey's heart feels like home. Nikki's got that quick one fire. us higher. Spoilers everywhere, so be warned. Super fast, please come aboard. Susie's special mind, they'll always like this because they think that everything's truly as it is. Oh, 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 oh. Oh, 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 oh. Oh, 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 yeah. Oh, 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 oh. Let's kitchen rules the game. Glorious strength, she keeps the flame. Our latest hustle never quits. Looks the towns are gems every bit.